Good morning. I have a few moments and I just want to share something that came to me. It was a question. Does it answer questions? I don't know. But let's find out. In the Bible, and us as believers use the Bible, to help determine what's right and wrong, our walk, what we're supposed to be doing, a various amount of thoughts. In our present condition, I'm going to use the word condition because we were not created in such a manner. We tend to put an importance to things, especially when we're dealing with something in our life. What's the most important? What's the priority? What's the end result, and how do we get there? So we look at the scripture. I think in a lot of cases we tend to do the same thing. We take and put one thing as more important than another. If we were to ask a simple question, according to God, what's the most important thing for us to know in the scriptures? What's the most important thing for us to follow in the scriptures? What would your answer be? We know that we have constant discussions about doctrine and theology. Getting to heaven, talking about hell. If it's more important to be a Jew or a Gentile, which one is higher in terms? Is the pastor in your church hold more position and power, per se, or a higher place than, say, the door opener or the person who cleans the toilets? All these things that we put a determination on, a scale. We put it on a scale, a weight and a measure. Now, I've talked about the scales before regarding the New and the Old Testament, which they're strictly all covenants. And we do that then. We say, okay, well, this covenant supersedes or is more important now than that covenant. We whether we like to admit it or not, the simplistic answer for most people would be, regarding the Bible, is what's the most important lesson in the Bible? That God is God, and there's no other gods. That's a very important thing. But yet we have a lot of gods in our life. And it seems that when the precedence comes to light, we choose the one that works best for us. I guess that's sort of like what Adam and Eve did in regards to the apple. After having their discussion with Satan about the importance of knowledge, and that they could be just like him. They wouldn't have to depend on his word, on his direction, nearly as much. They wouldn't surely die in that moment. Yet it started the clock for all of humanity and all of creation. A decay. So what was God trying to show us is the most important? What was Jesus trying to show us is the most important? I'm not sure if I'm going to answer that right now for you in regards to what I think 100%. But I do see in the very beginning what God did for his creation. Instead of utterly destroying them, the first implementation of what I can call grace is when he took another creation of his that he loved and sacrificed it to cover Adam and Eve, their nudity. He sacrificed. So if we were to look at the Bible and say, what is the most important thing? As a servant, sacrificing our very flesh to do God's will, to do God's bidding, to walk into the fire when we were told to bow before another God, to end up in a lion's den. It's the sacrifice of, I guess, what we consider most important to us in the moment, which would be us. Sacrificing it and walking as God's telling us to walk. What else takes precedence? In Jesus' life, I didn't see any other thing that would take precedence, any other thought that would take precedence. He knew, in fact, when he was threatened, by Pilate, don't you know I could take your life? He said, there's nothing that you can do to me that God has not already predestined, put into place. His sacrifice was following exactly God's will instead of his own, his Father's will. Just figured I'd share that short thing today, and I want you to put thought to that when it comes to the things that we debate, the scriptures that we cherry pick out of the Bible, the laws that are God's that we say no longer exist. All these things that we can put into place, including a door prize like heaven or hell, or any other aspect when it comes to sacrificing ourselves to do the bidding of God. For there is no other God before him. He made that clear, and Jesus made clear his sacrifice on the altar so we can get back to the original design that God had for his creation before the sin. The Adam and Eve that were made perfect in his image and likeness. Chew on that for a while this week. I think I'm going to talk about this more maybe Tuesday. Have a good day. Love you all. Bye.